Good morning, folks. So this live stream is dual function. We are testing out also the Wi-Fi fix here at the clinic. So, this funny thing about the pass-through moments. I have the Art of War worked on the live op, which I'm not allowed to express how that turned out, but I can tell you that they settled. And so, because that business is concluded, whoever that party is, that's concluded. And then Windstream has come out here, been forced to fix the internet issue, and acquired a home today. Congrats to me. So there are these moments, and you work with all the sticking hands, you push all the elements into place, moving all the different things in life. The whole point of feng shui and of practicing the changes, in this case, reduction for increase, contraction for expansion, is to aid the art of war so that we come out on top. And I'm not kidding you, they all just happen today. So there are these moments in the universe where everything squeezes and pops through, and then you open up. Now, I'm not out of the woods yet. I gotta move our house and gotta do my CEUs, but suffice it to say, today we are winning, folks, and that's what the Chinese sciences are all about, winning. So I'm really happy about that, and I'm just really excited to announce that there is this process, and that you get through. I don't know if you can tell, but I've been stressed. So it feels nice to be seeing outside the tunnel. I've been off of Facebook for 4 or 5 months, just to provide the energy for getting through this little pass through, to squeeze and be able to adjust through that difficulty, because it was one of those. I don't know if you've seen on Air Force bases and Army bases, they put barriers up and everything. It's like this, so you can't go straight through. You always have to be going around. It was like that. And I was constantly moving this way and that way and making myself larger and more fierce and smaller and sometimes even quiet, just to get everything to go through. And, would I have liked to win more? You always want to win more, but the whole goal is that you at least have the more established winning position. So I'm pretty happy about that. Funny thing, there's this comedian, Owen Benjamin. I don't know if anybody's subscribed to him, but he's beginning more and more to the right, and more just really, he's kind of whinging a bit. And he posted a video. It's interesting because his video could be hit with copyright strikes, because it actually belongs to Dave Rubin. He's just putting text over about the CEO of Patreon and how he's a liar and lying about content. Then they posted the letter from Patreon's executive team about his content, and now if he keeps violating, basically hate speech policies, which I don't believe in hate speech, but I understand that Patreon has to deal with the laws as they exist on the books, right? They don't have the ability to alter the environment that which we're all in. And so, Owen is busy whinging and whining about the fact that he has no platform. Now, let's be clear. This YouTube and Facebook and Patreon, yeah, it is how we all communicate, but it is not a public forum. It is a private company. And people do not have the right to go on to these platforms and spout, not hate speech, but let's say to do whatever, to do shock value entertainment or shock comedy songs and things that instigate an environment of which it could theoretically lead to violence on a certain group. And it's not that it would then be the fault of the creator. It would only be the fault of the person who takes part in that violence on those groups. However, it would open up that company to litigation and to potential Just basically, it would open them up to being sued and at fault, and of course the reputation would be slammed, which would be hurting all of the other content providers on that platform. So let's say Patreon, for example. So, Owen is busy complaining about his free speech. It's free speech. It's not free speech. It's a property rights issue. Now, anybody who aspires to be a libertarian, okay, right, a classical liberal, who's fiscally conservative and classically liberal, not Depression era forward liberal, but a classic liberal. You've got to understand that your personal rights don't supersede the property rights of other people, because those property rights of other people are actually still their personal rights, their civil liberties. So, for example, if I were to have a live stream of my Tai Chi classes, and somebody wanted to come in and then they wanted to shout angry things about either against vegans or being vegan, that they should be vegan. They don't have a right to do that just because there are people in my building or because I'm online. It is my school and clinic, and it is also, in this case, my channel, but this channel is also hosted on YouTube. So there are now then two private properties that are dealing. One of the reasons people always, not people, but there have been several people that said, oh, so you think you're a master? No, Shufro Cariaga is a brand name. It is a persona, if you like. It is a professional title, right? Because I'm not a doctor. So the interaction of my accounts is on a corporate and professional level, to where, even if it's personal and it's something that I've said, my interaction with Facebook and with YouTube, it uses my brand name, because that name is a professional name. It has to do with my licensure. It has to do with my identity. So if I have an issue with these platform hosts, I'm going to reference my business rights as an individual and also a corporation. And so, but my property rights would not supersede those of YouTube or Facebook. And if you're going to understand the art of war and how to use the orthodox techniques to deal with these kinds of things, you've got to understand that actually works in your favor. Now, not unless you're Owen Benjamin, in which case then you whine about free speech. Well, my free speech as a citizen isn't going to work anymore in a society that is under corporate code jurisdiction, and that is what most of America is under currently. Sometimes they'll put you under naval jurisdiction, but most of the time it's UCC. Okay, it's not common law anymore, right? It's not just Owen Benjamin, it's Owen Benjamin the comedian. And so his property rights, which would include his content, do not supersede the property rights and content of the company that is hosting it, ever. And in this case, in Patreon's case, maybe the CEO is lying, saying that your content, you don't have to worry. But he also said if you're having healthy dialogue and you're pushing things to where we're discussing why social Marxism is happening, why academia is pushing these agendas, where these mobs are coming from. Because Owen has been the victim of some of these mobs. He's also instigated. I mean, it's like, can the nail that's really high up really complain it gets the hammer first? Can the worm that goes crawling across the ground in the middle of the day complain when the birds come and find it? No. So he has personally made it his shtick, and that's how he's gotten an audience, to be a shock comedian and entertainer. I mean, most of his songs and his comedy routines are from a certain right-leaning perspective. Fine, fair enough. So does Crowder. But the difference between Owen and Crowder is that Crowder understands property values and property rights, whereas Owen is complaining that it's like, oh, I'm feeling violated and this guy's lying. Well, maybe he's lying, or maybe he's just working within the system, which is what all of us have to do. One of the reasons I chose not to be a, quote, sovereign citizen, well, aside from the fact that it was listed as a terrorist group, is that you really can't escape it. Let's say to be a sovereign citizen, you have to cease using Federal Reserve notes, which is all the dollar bills. You have to cease using your driver's license, which then you don't have a privilege to drive anymore, right? You could ride a horse or a bicycle. You'd have to cease using insurance and credit cards, and you'd have to refuse using your corporatized name that is attached to your birth certificate. You'd have to refuse to use your Social Security number and refuse to pay taxes through that number, right? Because taxes is voluntary in America. Of course it's not. It's a big shakedown. It's robbery. But think of how miserable life would be. So is it freedom to have to do all these? No. But the reason it's designed is because there are always people under common law who are trying to finagle and cheat and steal from other people. That's why these things were created. It's not just to give the leg up to a bank or an insurance company or whatever. Does that do that? Yeah, sometimes it does. So bear that in mind. And act within the system and use the handles of the orthodox technique and unorthodox technique. If you want to win, use the handles of orthodox technique and unorthodox. As we say, the Yue and Fu axes. Right? These are the symbols of power that the king would give to the general. Well, they are also symbols of the orthodox and the unorthodox techniques. So, and that means direct and indirect. And there's a lot more to that as far as like the direct within the indirect, etc. But I'm just saying, don't pull an Owen Benjamin with some kind of Marvel, DC, comic book values and then complain when the system doesn't work for you. Have I chewed out cops before? Yeah, absolutely. But did I ever like do what some of these people do and like jump out, cuss them out, and like throw my hands in the air and act erratic? Heck no, because that doesn't make any sense. And there's a way to be a protesting citizen without also being a burden to society. You know, like these kids, then they're jumping out in front of cars and they're expecting not to get run over. I don't get it. You know, don't. Okay, civil unrest and protest is a necessary thing, right? Thank God for the civil rights people and the labor union people, as far as before they ruined companies, to go out there and do the hard work to make sure that things change. But there's a huge difference between that and like the Occupy movement, and even now the Antifa people, who are, instead of just knowing the law and like wanting to go forward and write legislation, like these people aren't showing up to city council meetings and protesting themselves there. You can find those videos. Libertarians do that, right? Libertarians show up to the city council meetings and the school board meetings and make their voices heard. That's the right way to do it. Going out and jumping in front of cars or getting on YouTube and whinging that my free speech isn't working because Patreon has censored me, that's not going to work. It's not going to change anything. It's just pandering to a certain audience, and that is not a winning strategy. Right, so to bring it full circle, when you start working towards a goal, you're going to have to go through these squeezing and compression periods, and if you're using the Chinese sciences, you got to understand that. You got to learn how to ride that Bronco, and then when it gets through, it feels a lot better. But just bear in mind, it may not always go as smooth as possible. Listen, I have to go and treat the patient. I'm sure you can hear. And so I will see you all later. I know that I'm supposed to talk about Yellowstone. Suffice it to say, I did not find any outright evidence of recent arc discharge. There may be a couple spots, and so I'm going to circle, make a little map and do a circle and draw here, but I didn't really find any super evidence. I will talk about, when I make that video, I will talk about a possible method by which convection could have heated up the hotspot there. So we'll talk about hotspots in general when I come back. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.